Hello. So many greetings. I love seeing your faces. Thank you so much for coming and joining me for the first Rich Conversation of 2026. A year that I think will provide us ample opportunity to have many, many rich conversations. Not just here in this format, but rich conversation must be had amongst all of us in every place. So, thank you for joining me, and we'll start here in just a quick second. I just want to give other people the opportunity to maybe join us, though I do know that a lot of people are taking the opportunity to watch at a later time because technology allows us to do that. I will say today's the 30th of January, and in the United States, there's been a call for another general strike. I think we're still building up to the kind of power that a general strike, say, in France would have. The United States is not used to doing that yet. But today, on this 30th day of January, my family is participating as best we can in that general strike by not buying things. My one daughter, who works for a company, has taken the day off, and we're just withholding our engagement in the general capitalist way of doing things. So here, this rich conversation is one of my maybe acts of rebellion, if you will, because I want to talk about stuff that I think those in power would rather if we didn't talk about. So I'm going to take a nice full breath here. And if you want to join me, we can take a collective breath, bringing ourselves present in this moment together, feeling our feet on the ground and our butts in our seats, feeling into the space that surrounds us, the ceiling above us and the floor below us, and bringing ourselves into this present moment that we're sharing with a collective of people who have maybe similar things on their mind, similar interests, people who want to know more about energy and being an energy being and how to use energy and engage with energy. So, thank you for taking this moment with me, and here we are, ready to launch. It is actually warm enough in my room. I'm going to take this off. So, in the initial concept of this particular rich conversation, I was asking what would the world look like if it was right. The other maybe subheading of this topic is envisioning the future that we would like to see. And the inspiration for this rich conversation came from an actual conversation that I was having with a very dear friend, I don't know, a week or so ago, might have been 10 days. And we were talking about the circumstances and what's going on in Minnesota, what's going on in other parts of the United States, and what's going on in the broader part of the world. And I told my friend that that my prayer has been that enlightenment comes to everybody who is perpetrating the inhumane violence on other people who are wanting to control and conquer and divide, and that these particular players are suddenly overtaken with the realization that we are literally fractals of the same source, the same one source of being, and that the people that they are perpetrating this violence on are in fact themselves. They realize there is no separation or differentiation. And I told my friend that I imagine that in that moment of spontaneous enlightenment, that these people would stop in their tracks, that they would drop their weapons, they pull down their masks, they might even drop to their knees and think, oh my God, what have I done? They might even collapse in a puddle of tears or go up in a puff and smoke. And suddenly I had a whole new vision of what the rapture might be that Christians talk about. And I started thinking, oh, I like this idea now. Okay, I can get behind that. Let them, please, let them reach a moment of sudden enlightenment. And if that means that they go up into heaven, great. Leave the rest of us here to clean up the mess and and to go on becoming the enlightened humans that we are here to become. So as I'm speaking this vision to my friend, he, of course, in his very practical way, says, well, I don't think that's going to happen. And I said, wait a minute. It surely will not happen if we don't even entertain the idea. And maybe it won't happen like that, but perhaps, I mean, if there's even going to be any opening towards a sudden and spontaneous shift of consciousness, we have to imagine it first. We have to imagine it, and we have to speak it out loud. Even if our friends are going to go, oh yeah, dream on, Janie. Okay, I will dream on. Thank you very much. And I bet I'll find other people who might want to dream on with me. So that's why I'm hoping that you chose to join me in this conversation. So, it's human thinking that has created our reality. Human thinking that has brought us to this precipice of where we are today. And in order to shift this reality, it's going to take human thinking to get us out of it. We need to become aware of the power of our thoughts, and we need to reprogram or redirect our thoughts of what's possible. Albert Einstein said, imagination is more important than knowledge. And he goes on to say, knowledge is limited. Imagination encircles the world, stimulating progress, giving birth to evolution. So the world that we are co-creating, all of us who are in human bodies right now, is limited only by our capacity to imagine. And Einstein also went on to say that a human being is part of the whole called by us universe, a part limited in time and space. He experiences himself, his thoughts and feelings as something separate from the rest. I love this, a kind of optical delusion of his consciousness. So what I want to suggest is that we take the road less traveled. We want to step off the path of habitual, realistic thinking and let ourselves go wild, exploring the full realm of possibilities. I want to plumb the depths of this field of infinite possibilities. And then I want to speak those possibilities into being using the technology of prayer. So I'd like to share with you, some of you have already heard me read excerpts from my book that will hopefully be out later on this year. It is in the hands of the publisher at present. Your Wild and Vital Life, Using Energy Medicine as a Portal into the Divine Mystery. And this is one of the pieces that I've written about prayer. Words and speech are truly the most magnificent magic we have, in that they can change moods, opinions, and trajectories. A word can change everything. Think of how much power lies in a simple yes or no. You've surely had the experience of holding back on saying something out loud because you know that once you say it, it will become real. It will set things in motion and no longer be in your control. Words can start wars and end wars. They can lead to misunderstanding and to reconciliation. We live in a vibrating world, and words activate vibration. They vibrate in our bodies when we say them. They vibrate in the field surrounding us, and their vibration travels out into the world, whether it's said aloud or written. When we choose affirmative, positive, loving words, speaking aloud the things that we want to call forth from the realm of unmanifested potential, which is source, we conjure the power and the possibility of all that is to manifest what we would prefer in our experience. The opposite is true as well. When we speak negatively or disparagingly of our lives or of others, we affirm lack, limitation, disconnection, and not enoughness. We activate the vibration of what we don't have or don't want to manifest, oftentimes with amazing results. Prayer is energy work using words, no difference than what Wiccans call spell work. The words we choose affect a change in our personal vibration as well as in the vibration of our environment. Michael Bernard Beckwith says that we pray not to change something out there, but to undergo an inner transformation. Some of the qualities that we might want to resonate and amplify in our lives are joy, freedom, peace, wisdom, connection, harmony, prosperity, vitality, clarity, and wholeness. We change our vibration and subsequently our experience with the intentional use of words. Our affirmative prayers also have the power to change the vibrational experience of others as well as ourselves. And now in the book, I'm starting to talk about the what if method of prayer, which I mentioned in the newsletter that I sent out, that I'd be introducing this what if method of prayer that I like to use. So still from the book, the questions, what if I, what if we, what are the possibilities, is what we are living in right now. This soup, this sea, this infinite field of ever-changing diversity that we find ourselves in is God. It is the infinite one, gaining perspective on itself through the diversity of its creation. Everything is this infinite energy at play, and we are no exception. We are that source asking, what if, and seeing what happens. Our bodies, our consciousness, our circumstances, our relationships are all the result of the original what if thought. The challenge for a spiritual being having a human experience with a tenacious ego constantly defining who I am and differentiating between me and them is remembering that we all emanate from the same source. We are not separate from our Creator, from nature, or from each other. We're all fractals of source, like multiple rainbows of a single prism. Each of us is that I am presence playing out the question, what if? With this realization, which is what many spiritual traditions attempt to teach and what meditation can lead to, we have the option of consciously participating in this dance rather than being tossed about by it. End reading from the book. So in June of last year, the rich conversation that we had was tending to the immunity of your consciousness. And in that rich conversation, I talk about the noosphere, and I encourage you to go back and find that on the rich conversation page that you should have the link to. And the noosphere, just to reiterate what that is, the noosphere, which is a word that was coined by Pierre Teilhard de Chardin, it is a collective field of consciousness that wraps around the planet. It's where ideas come from. It's where thought hangs out. And it is a shared field of consciousness that we are both subject to and contributors to. There is brilliance in the noosphere, as well as a whole lot of drivel and detritus. So I want to just say this again. We are contributors to this collective consciousness, as well as being subject to download. And in that conversation that I had last June, what I was talking about was tending to the immunity of our consciousness with as much diligence as we tend to the immunity of our physical body. Because these thoughts of separation, these thoughts of otherness, of us and them, are floating around in that noosphere, in that field of collective consciousness. And if we're not aware of being able to differentiate the thoughts that pass through of them being ours or somebody else's, and if we're not able to change the trajectory of our thoughts, then we are subject to falling prey to these other kinds of thoughts, these more negative kinds of thoughts. So today, I want to ask the question, what if, and explore what happens when we play with what if, when we let our imaginations run wild, when we know that we are swimming in this sea of infinite possibilities, and that what we see happening and what we are told is reality is not necessarily true, and that we can create a different reality first with our thoughts, and then by speaking those thoughts and those visions into being through using our words. And when I was having my conversation with my friend Steve, and I said, hang on, how are we even going to get where we want to go if we don't speak those things into being? And he had a moment of, oh yeah, okay, right, all right, well, let's play with that then. And I think that that is what we need to do with our friends, because so many people, sometimes myself included, have that, that's not realistic. But what's realistic? What defines and what creates realistic? It's all the creation of our thinking and our human minds. So I want to ask the question, what if? What if the collective mind came into a whole new level of self-awareness and never doubted our empowerment and never doubted our value in contributing to what is possible? What would it look like? How would our behavior change if we thought, what I do and what I say and what I think really does matter, and it really is contributing to the shift that we might want to see being possible? So I think of prayer as energy work using words. And I was inspired by Starhawk, who said something along the likes of, words are the most powerful most powerful magic we have at our disposal. So I want to encourage you, even if it's just writing them down or speaking them to an empty room, or maybe speaking them to somebody that you live with, but saying your vision of the future out loud. And also, when you hear people conjuring the vision of a horrible future, we can say, hang on, how about if we even think about what's the possibility of a positive future? Now, I'm not saying that things are going to be easy peasy, lemon squeezy. However, what I do hear from my astrology friends is that this age of Aquarius, one of the key features of the age of Aquarius, is how fast things can shift. Things can shift on a dime, and they can shift on a dime in one direction or in another. So I maintain that if we hold the vision of a more positive outcome to the problems that we face right now, we can help to shift that trajectory into coming into communion and cooperation and community and helping each other. So let's talk a little bit more about this what if method of prayer. I imagine Source itself having the original what if thought. And I think that the original what if thought that Source had was what divided us. It was kind of the the first cell division, if you will, of consciousness, of us or me and not me, me and other. And then when we have that division, then there's reflection is able to happen back and forth. And this is what provided the contrast so that this infinite consciousness could go, oh, wow, so that's possible. So what if I was 4 or 5? What if I was a trillion? What if? And there, from that is how matter emerged. So from that original what if question, that Source, I imagine, asked itself at one point, from that came the fractals of the mind, those rainbow prisms that became you and me and all of human creation, all of these fractals of the same one Source going, oh, and what if, and what if, and what if? So we continue to ask that question in order to experience contrast. And it's contrast that gives us perspective and the ability to self-reflect. So if we asked the question, what if I could hate part of creation? What if I could isolate it and set it apart and call it other and dislike it or even hate it? What would that feel like? That would, in my mind, feel dark and dense and heavy and hard and painful. So what if I could recognize that every single being on the planet, the ones I see in the news, the ones I watch on the street, the ones wearing masks, as well as the ones wearing turbans and coming after the guy who goes after her, Ilhan Omar, she is my hero, I just want to say. Anyway, what if I preferred the feeling of compassion? What if I could recognize that every being is an aspect of the one Source, same as me? I prefer that thought. I prefer to remember and to think that there is no separation of that being who I think of as other and myself. That being is also God in disguise of thinking, what if? Thinking what if thoughts to themselves. So in an awakened mind, the question, what if, could be followed by, what would I choose? What if I was separate and alone? I would prefer to choose the thought that I am an aspect, a fractal of the one. What if I thought I could believe I was separate and alone? Or I could also believe that I was part of the whole and that I was included. I wonder what that would feel like. So the what if method of prayer is to take a circumstance, no matter whatever the circumstance is, health, war, strife, work, and as Ernest Holmes called it, taking it into treatment. He called prayer treatment. And what if it into a corrected thought? And I play this out. I play this out daily. I play the vision of this spontaneous enlightenment coming to those people who are perpetrating the pain and the strife and the not enoughness, the despair that we see in the world right now. Excuse me. And I play that out. So what if every one of those soldiers, every one of those ICE agents, everyone who was in offensive mode? What if they suddenly awoke to that in reality, that all that is God, and that they were participating in the faulty belief of separation and otherness? What would that be like? What would happen? And like I said earlier in my conversation with Steve, I imagine them dropping their weapons, thinking, dropping to their knees, thinking, oh my God, what have I done? Who are these people? How can I help them? Instead of how can I hurt them? How can I make repairs? How can I find ways of feeding them, of caring for them, of helping them to get their needs met? What if corporate executives had this sudden realization and went, wow, clearly poisoning the water and the earth is not beneficial for any of us, because the earth is as much me as I am me. I am not separate from the earth, and I'm stepping back from this desk. I can just imagine the desk even getting tossed over and the chair getting thrown back when they stand up and go, enough. Shut down all of those factories that are poisoning the air and poisoning the water. We got to figure out a different way, because all the solutions are already there. All of the solutions are there in the Noosphere. They're there in the Noosphere, but they're also already being implemented here on Earth. So what if enough people just stop thinking in the way that is creating the division and the strife, and started thinking along the lines of, hey, what if we put that solution into, if we started to implement that solution? What if I actually have enough money? What if I gave some of this money away and started taking care of people and the earth and things? Can you imagine? I want you to imagine. One of the first things I think of is that the world would be a quieter place. I think things would just get a lot quieter when the wheels of industry were not grinding to the degree that they are right now. I mean, literally, cars would be quieter because they would be hybrid, or they would be completely off gas. What if everybody got to go to school and had great educational experiences? What if everybody had all the health care that they needed, and they didn't have to wait 5 months for a specialist? Wow. What if all of those little kids could be well fed and well nourished in their minds? They could sleep well. They could be cherished and protected. Imagine the possibilities that they're going to come through with when they're nurtured. So I'd like you to just take a moment right now to just close your eyes and give a couple of moments to imagining the what if. What if those people who felt so separate and alone, what if those people who felt like they had to prove something or that they were not enough, what if they suddenly realized that they were enough? What if they suddenly realized that they had gifts and talents that they could contribute that would be a benefit to all beings on the planet? What if that executive had a sudden revelation and realized that using a different technology or implementing a different solution would help the masses rather than padding his own bank accounts? What if spontaneous healing could occur from enlightenment? And people's bodies, as well as minds, would begin to thrive and feel vital and alive. What would it sound like? What would it smell like? what would it feel like? What would it look like? What would conversations be like? And once we start giving our energy, our attention, and our intention to shifting the way that we think about a thing, then we need to start speaking about those things, even just with a simple what if. We don't have to convince anybody, I don't think, of the rightness of our imagination. We just need to hold the possibilities alive with our imagination and with the words that we choose to use. What if the leaders of today woke up suddenly to the realization of oneness, and that they were in no way separate from the constituents that they represent, and that the idea of lack and limitation is just a faulty idea? What if they began thinking differently? Thinking from a place of unity and enoughness and generosity and kindness and love? What would that look like? How fast would things change if they had this realization? So I think it's time for us to what if our way back into union with oneness, in loving creativity, in perfect wholeness. And what if I knew without a doubt that I was enough, that I was loved, loving, and lovable forever? How would that feel? How would I behave? What would I choose? Who would I hang out with if I knew that I was a loving being and that I was worthy? How would I spend my time? And what if every other person on the planet had this knowing and chose their behavior accordingly? So this what if method of prayer requires practicing affirmative thoughts and conjuring a vibrational frequency of the thing that you want to bring into being. I love the word conjuring. We want to conjure a vibrational frequency of that which we want to bring into being. So I hope that you will play with this what if. I hope that you will have the courage to say, wait a minute, is that true? Is that being realistic or not realistic? And I hope that you will remember that, Lynn McTaggart wrote The Field, right? And The Intention Experiment, maybe good books to revisit if you haven't read them before, that talks about the power of the collective field of thought and consciousness. And I had an email come in from a friend who's not able to be with us live, Hilda. Hilda used the term bestow epiphanies. I want to bestow epiphanies to all of those people who I might otherwise look at and think, I wish he would die. Okay, I have had that thought. But no, I would rather bestow an epiphany. I wish he would have an epiphany, this sudden realization of enlightenment, because that would do it. That would do it. I would rather have that happen. And by all means, if those people who I perceive are living in the darkness, that are perpetrating this mess that we're living in, by all means, if they get to go first, let them go first. I'm happy for them to go first, to be the ones that reach their enlightenment even before the rest of us do, because then the rest will follow, and we will be living in a completely new and different world. So I have a couple minutes if anybody either has questions or comments, or if you have something that you would like to speak, a possibility from this infinite field that you would like to speak into being and share with the rest of us so we can work on it, by all means, let me hear it. Anybody? You can raise your hand or wave at me. Now, am I not hearing from anybody because you can't imagine? Is your imagination limited? Or is it because you're afraid of saying something out loud? Well, all right then. No questions? Does this sound crazy? Janie, you're crazy. Yes, Pam.
No, for me, no, it's because it's Friday night and I'm all used up, but I wanted to take a good energy bath by listening to this, and I imagine it will inform my dreams.
Nice. Yeah, I like the idea of playing with the what if in our dreams. That's, one of the beauties of lucid dreaming, if one can achieve it, is being able to go, wait a minute, I don't like the way this is going. I'm going to dream it this other way. So maybe that's what we're doing here in this supposedly waking world, is lucid dreaming and saying, I don't like the way that's going. I want to envision it going in this direction. You are talking, Pam, and we're not hearing you.
Sorry, I will take, it was out of all the richness, one of the most useful things was to hear about Hilda's epiphany scattering,
Bestowing epiphanies.
because that's a really, I like that as a way to come back when I start thinking less than charitable thoughts.
Right, right. And I will say, speaking real down to hardcore terminology, while on one hand I might really share in the phrase fuck ice, on the other hand I'm not comfortable with it because that's doing exactly what I'm talking about. So I think maybe now I am going to bestow epiphanies on
Yeah,
ice.
because,
I want to go
sorry.
ahead.
Yeah, I mean, when I've watched some of these footage of protests or the reactions of people when some of these terrible things have happened, I understand. Of course, I can understand the shock and horror and the disbelief that and the fuck ice or I and even after the first recent shooting when somebody, I think her wife was saying shame, shame, which is much less violent than some of the other things that could have been said. I'm thinking it's very Jesus-like in a way, but what if when something like that happens, all the protesting people say something, I don't even know what it would be yet, but something so shockingly peaceful and forgiving that the perpetrators would go and have their epiphany. I mean, it comes down
Right.
to the same thing.
Epiphany!
Yeah,
Epiphany!
but like, what if, imagining myself in that kind of situation, it's a turn the other cheek kind of thing, almost maybe. But like, what would it take for the people who are so horrified and shocked to actually say something loving to the people who've just made really big human mistakes?
Yeah, and I would want to explore that because I'm not sure that, forgiving, or I mean, I think we do need to recognize that those people who are doing that are also God making choices in,
Mhm.
in a way that is in contrast to the choices that we would prefer. And finding a way, I mean, I just don't think, I'm not ready to say I forgive you for that, but I am ready to say, wow, okay, so that was a choice, because of a very, 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 very limited perception that happened. And what do I wish? I wish for enlightenment. I wish for epiphany. So I don't quite know what the nice, catchy phrase is that's quite as powerful, packs as much of a punch as fuck ice
Yeah.
does, but maybe we can come up with that. Please
Yeah.
help me come up with that. I would really appreciate that.
Yeah. Yeah. And just how to stand, not to stand in judgment, because it is their belief, my belief, that other
Yep.
person's belief. But anyway, it is very
Yep.
interesting. I will stop
That
now.
we've got some good work to do. Laura, did you have something you wanted to say?
Uh, I was going to say enlighten ice.
Enlighten eyes. Enlighten eyes. There we go. That's good. It has a nice ring to it. All right. Thanks. So
Sure.
I want to end with a poem that my very dear friend Michael Kleber Diggs wrote. If you don't know who Michael Kleber Diggs is, you and you're on Facebook, you can uh, search his name. He's very well worth the follow. He is a black man living in Minneapolis. He happens to be married to one of my oldest childhood friends, and he's actually, if I recall correctly, he is the poet laureate of Hennepin County, in and that's like where right where all this shit's coming down right now. So he wrote this poem, which I think is quite along the lines of beginning to envision what comes afterwards. Which reminds me of one more thing that I want to say, which is that just before something new is born, there is always upheaval and cacophony. And there something new is being born. And we can participate in what that thing is that's being born by starting to think in these different ways, in these realms of infinite possibility. Because what we're witnessing is the old dying and cracking apart, and it's ugly and it's hard and it's messy. But underneath it, there is an upwelling of greater awareness, greater consciousness, greater community and compassion and cooperation. And I truly do believe that that is what's coming. That will end up evolving. I don't know how long that will take. I would very much like it to be next month. Or as soon as possible, hopefully within my lifetime, if not sooner. Um, and so this poem by Michael seeds that, if you will, seeds that kind of vision of what happens after. So his poem is titled After They Left. After they left, we policed ourselves, restored our spirits in quiet tasks until the earth ran red with iron and sweat. We called old seeds from the cavernous cold to rejoin them with the heartsick soil, then tended our crops by hand. Every day, everyone bent down on knees to pull the weeds away. Pests took their part, but left plenty. Each harvest, the village gathered together to share, to each a share. For all it had suffered, our body stayed whole. Trauma dissipated. Where our wounds were acute, we applied more salve, calling our injured closer in as we sang to them and gave them more fruit. Michael Kleber Diggs. Kleber hyphen Diggs. So thank you for joining me in this rich conversation, and thank you for joining me in envisioning, imagining, using our wildest imaginations to evoke the possibilities from the infinite field of possibilities, which is Source. And thank you for joining me in speaking them out loud, saying them to a friend, writing them in your journal, really noticing when you are affirming the negative, when you are affirming the worst. You know, I do not allow people to say to me, oh, we're screwed now. I just am like, mm-mm-mm. That's not okay. We're challenged now. We are absolutely challenged now. But we have this infinite field of possibilities to work with. And we want to download from the Noosphere those brilliant possibilities that can be the solutions that we need. And we want to upload to the Noosphere our own thoughts of possibility. And then we want to speak them into being. And I think that's going to help speed this transition that we're in and make more connection between people and build on love. So there you have it. And I hope that you have a good, strong 2026, that you feel connected, that you feel like you are enough, and that your voice counts and matters. And I love you dearly, and I'm so happy to have you all join me. Thank you so much for being here. And I look forward to hearing from you and your possibilities that you are conjuring too. All right. Thank you so much. Bye.